Hey, good day, everybody, and welcome back to day 9 in the book of Job. We've been going at this pretty hard and heavy few days a week for the last couple of weeks, and we're making ground, and we're having some good interaction on the Zoom room, and I so appreciate everybody that has been attending and all the comments that do come through. I mean, I know I'm only human, and sometimes I forget to lower the audio of the music, but it's all background, right? So some people say I talk too loud as it is, and but if you can't hear my voice, what good is it, right? It's supposed to be a class. But I wanted to thank specifically everybody that's done some donations in the last little while. People have been asking me how's it going to help grow Noahide broadcasts, and so I wanted to share with you something new and exciting. Rabbi Goldberg of the Noahide World Center and myself have partnered, and we have started and launched a Roku station. So in just a few weeks, we are going to be live on over 50 million Roku boxes available as the International Noahide Network. And I hope you guys will find that exciting, and you all deserve a pat on the back. I appreciate some reasonable donations that came through have, allowed for this to happen. I mean, it's all about working together to help forward the light of Torah, especially out of the nation of Israel. I so appreciate those that are willing to share with us. I've already got several rabbis that are willing to share material, but when you start going to television, people tend to step back, especially some that are shy, but most of these rabbis are not shy, and they're all for it, and I've even picked up a few more where I'll be able to show some other series that have never been shown on the Noahide World Network. Noahide World Center's social media station. So I'm looking forward to maybe gaining some new content, some higher quality content, and we've got the broadcast time. So 24/7 availability on Roku. The station is just being set up by the people there, and it's going to be called the International Noahide Network, and it'll be available on all Roku boxes. So that's super exciting news. I hope you guys are as excited as I am. I'll be spending the next few weeks converting some of our lessons that we've done over the last few years to meet the format for their stream resolution, and got to match the bit rate. So I've got hundreds of hours of video I've got to just make sure is right, and then I got to start uploading it and determining time and content, who's going to get played what, and try to make it interesting. So that's exciting news. The International Noahide Network. You'll be hearing more about it, and keep an eye out for us on social media, and please consider supporting something like that. It's just all part and parcel. Hopefully I'll be able to find some new content as well. Some exciting new content. The whole idea is to grow, and the more that we grow, and the more footprint we get out there in the world, the more opportunity for communities to develop close to blossoming Noahides, especially if people who have leadership potential start to step forward and really move into the fulfillment of their personal calling, and start to be, functioning members in a broader community. Well, I'm excited though. But last week, folks, we finished off with chapter 3, part 15. And I know that Ariel Murdoch there had asked some serious questions. And I thought that this started to answer her question. Verses 13 and 16 of chapter 3. Verse 13 reads, "For now should I have lain still and been quiet? I should have slept. Then had I been at rest with kings and counselors of the earth who built desolate places for themselves." Verse 15, "Or with princes that had gold, who filled their houses with silver." Verse 16, or as a hidden untimely birth I had not been as infants that never saw light. So Job was in his anguish. He's, wishing he never was. And the commentary, people are divided into many different socioeconomic positions. There are kings and noblemen, men of power, strength, wealth, and influence. At the bottom of the ladder are the helpless infants that die as they are born into this world. The comparison of the stillborn to the mighty kings and power players of society is a distressing thought. We cannot avoid feelings of pity, compassion, and frustration over the condition of the unfortunate, the weak, and the oppressed. The fundamental inequity of these conditions vexes our conscience. However, these injustices trouble only the living. The dead and those who never came into existence have no concern over this painful reality. Life itself creates the environment for our social inequity. The living, not the dead, are truly unfortunate, for they have to suffer the gnawing pain of these injustices. It is life that we can blame for pain and misfortune of all types. Job condemns life itself as the source of all that is bad. And as I've mentioned before, and written by Rabbi Yitzhak Schwartz, the dean of Orchos Chaim Yeshiva in Jerusalem, and he's the Rav of the community that developed around that. I want to thank Rabbi Schwartz for all the hard work that he does. You know what? Let's go on to the next lesson. I don't know why that lesson is just not taking in my All right, so we're going to go to 15C, chapter 3, verses 17 to 19 today. So that quick review of last week, the pain. Shalom, Zakia. Zakia's down in Lima, Peru. So glad you join with us regularly. We appreciate seeing your happy face in the audience. It puts a smile on mine. So chapter 3, part 15C, chapter 3 in the book of Job, we're reading verses 17 to 19, verse 18, or 17. There the wicked cease from troubling, and their way, and there the weary are at rest. Verse 18. There the prisoners are at ease together. They have not the voice of a slave driver. The small and great are there, and the servant is free from his master. So commentary. If we examine the different forms of pain and anguish, we can identify two categories: difficulties that are caused by our own physical condition. This can be further divided into two subcategories: the self-induced and self-inflicted pain caused by bad character traits and overindulgent lifestyles. The painful results of the pursuit of our never-ending physical needs. I mean, if anybody's ever been hungry and had to really, go to work hungry just to be able to get, food, it can be a long day. But the first one he mentions about caused by bad character traits and overindulgent lifestyles. I don't know if I mentioned it before. About a month or so ago, I was diagnosed as type 2 diabetes, and that's where your body no longer uses the insulin your body's producing, and then your blood sugar level goes through the roof. So it has to, with medicine, lower the blood sugar level, or you get all kinds of fuzziness and headaches and fatigue, and that's more self-induced from do I say bad character traits? Hey, I mean, there was a lot of years I ate well and maybe lived an overindulgent lifestyle. Always room to grow, right? 2, difficulties inflicted upon us by other human beings. Heaven forbid. In verse 17, Job relates to the first category and its first subdivision. The wicked referred to in this verse represent man's insatiable drive for the material. They are preoccupied with a relentless chase after wealth, fame, and fun. They never cease from troubling. This never-ending pursuit gives them no rest. If you've ever felt driven for something and you can't take your foot off the wheel or the pedal, to slow down and smell the roses and just be thankful. I mean, it's almost a lack of gratitude if you're moving too fast. Need you absorb more along the way. And there the weary are at rest is a metaphor for the second subcategory. Man's pursuit of a livelihood leaves him exhausted and vulnerable to a multitude of stress-related illnesses, and needless to say, with little energy for pleasure. The dead are free from this constant hustle. In Job's view, life is a vexation. Non-existence is a blessing. So, I mean, he's going through his anguish, and this is the way it's pouring out, and hopefully we learn from it. In verse 18 and 19, Job relates to the second category, the prisoners. Hear not the voice of the slave driver. The servant is free from his master. Man possesses the destructive drive to oppress his fellow man. Unfortunately, we are quite familiar with this phenomenon and the tragedies it creates. I mean, nobody appreciates totalitarian regimes. There are certain countries that are worse than others where dictatorships demand and lock everybody into servitude. It seems that as long as human life continues, oppression and suffering will persist. How much sorrow is spared from the dead? Again, we can see Job's destructive thought pattern. He allows himself to enter a stage of delusion, and that's what anguish does over a period. It starts to delude the mind. How wonderful would it be had he not been born or died immediately after birth, he contemplates. Life itself is the source of his problems. Rather than deal directly with his problems, he fantasizes his own death. And, that's what often a lot of ill people where they have some delusion, they fantasize their own death. Since life is the problem, death must be the solution. Job's approach borders on the absurd, but in his mind, that's fine because it allows him to shirk all responsibility for his future. The bitter state of his affairs is not his fault, and therefore the solution to him is not his responsibility. Damn them and make them believe that they will go away. So a summary from Rabbi Schwartz says, how often do we condemn those nasty forces as the cause of our frustrations? By deluding ourselves to believe that the problem is out there, we seek to vindicate ourselves and shirk responsibility for our future. Ironically, this only serves to perpetuate and aggravate our problems. In reality, even if you damn them, they do not go away. And as I mentioned, copyright Schwartz. So let's continue. Chapter 3, part 16, we're reading out of chapter 3, verses 20 to 26 now. Verse 20, why is light given to him that is in misery, and life to the bitter in soul? Verse 20, who long for death, but it does not come, and dig for it more than hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they can find a grave. Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden and from whom God has screened himself? That's a very, 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 very big verse, chapter 23, or verse 23. For my sighing comes before I eat, and my roarings are poured out like the waters. For the thing which I had feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come to me. I had no repose, nor had I rest, nor was I quiet, yet trouble came. So commentary, Job continues his indictment of everything and anything. Yes, there are people who are blessed with good fortune in this world, but does that justify or compensate for the misery of the multitudes of sufferers in this world? It appears that Job is blaming the fortunate ones for the unfortunate who must endure life. If there would be no life at all, the unfortunate would not suffer. Why should the unfortunate suffer through the gift of life that is appreciated only by the fortunate? It's a good question. Why is light given to him that is in misery, and life to the bitter in soul, who long for death, but it does not come, and dig for it more than hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they can find a grave. You know, you ever had such a long day that, you know, you hit the bed so hard and you just are, oh, I'm so glad that day is done. Or if you've ever had a real intense meeting, or even a test in a course that you're taking, you're just so glad to get it over with when it's done. But sometimes it's dreadful, the work you've got to do to set up for it and get ready to make it all come out to a positive result. And we've all experienced degrees. But if you've ever worked yourself to exhaustion, that bed can seem like just the ultimate. And I think, you know, you want to get into Job's mindset a bit here. Light is a great blessing. It ushers in the good of a new day. But for those who suffer, the light of a new day is a curse. One man's cup of tea is the other man's poison. So goes the old adage. A new day of life brings with it new pain and suffering. For the unfortunate, the new break of dawn ushers in another day of hope and anticipation of the end. If you're, you know, in an unfortunate situation, I just want to give you encouragement that there is hope, and this is part of Job's delusion through the anguish and pain he's in. Alas, the end can be ensured only by death. It as absurd as it sounds, death itself becomes the raison d'être. But death is elusive. It always seems to skip over the unfortunate when they are in the greatest need of it. And I just want to bring out a point here, because I've debated and discussed a lot of science over the years, and the reason why the rabbis are adamant on creation, the point that God did it, because believe it or not, the atheistic viewpoint of the eternal dirt nap, right, the naturalistic viewpoint that's only trusts in the raw nature, is this type of delusion. It thinks there's nothing else but the grave, and they actually live their lives in varying degrees of this delusional bitterness, and they don't see it. They think it's just scientifically the notion of a world to come is so far from them, and they're convinced so of the natural order of things that they have no hope for any relationship with Hashem in an afterlife, and so to them, you know, that's really what they're asking for, and it's sad, but it's true. They have only bad luck. Their life is filled with misery and anguish. Death would be a gift, and that would be totally inconsistent with their life of misfortune. After all, they are destined to suffer. That is their lot in life. So the unfortunate must suffer, but that does not mean that they have no hopes and desires. The unfortunate can be as focused and determined as the fortunate. They can strive for a goal that will bring them gladness and joy. In their misery-twisted minds, death is the greatest of all gifts, and they seek it like riches. Only death is the balm for their aching soul. When it finally comes, they will be happy. All forms of delusion are dangerous, but this attitude is clearly self-destructive. Life itself ceases to have any meaning at all. Effort to succeed is futile because success is death, and the equality of death obviates the need to succeed. The Malbim interprets this verse in a different way. When does death present itself? When one least expects it. The climax of misfortune occurs when the sufferer is about to attain some hope of good fortune. Just as he is about to discover hidden treasures, death strikes with cruel surprise. Those who suffer can never prosper because suffering is their destiny and duty. Often they must do it in a big way. So Job is the quintessential sufferer. He acquires wealth, fortune, and fame only to tragically lose it all. Job concludes that he has never had a good life. Even during his years of prosperity, he suffered the constant fear of losing it. The wisest of all men put it like this: The prosperity of the rich man does not allow him any rest in Ecclesiastes 5:11. That's from King Solomon. The elements of his good fortune turn into the bitter bile of misfortune. The poor man who never experienced wealth and fame will not miss them. Job knew the taste of the good life, and when he lost it, the pain was intense. At this point, Job is dangerously depressed. Not only does the pain obscure his understanding of the present and hopes for the future, it corrupts his memory of the past. The thankfulness of the past it's like melting away like wax in that bitter mind. His previous happiness and good fortune are all forgotten. In fact, he denies that they ever existed. In retrospect, his entire life is one long nightmare that he wishes would come to a quick end. Death is the only viable option in his fatalistic mind. The Midrash Rabbo Exodus 30:11 likens Job to a drunkard who goes on a rampage to destroy a prison and releases all of the prisoners. Then he proceeds to smash the statue of the king who judged the prisoners. Only later, when he is confronted by the king himself, does he become aware of his foolish conduct. One possible interpretation of this Midrash is that Job is intoxicated with pain. The prisoners are the living who are incarcerated in a bitter life. The king is God, Hashem. Job views the living as prisoners of a destiny that is outside of their control. They are shackled by the forces of power beyond them. Just as prisoners do not have the privilege to exercise their own free will to determine their future, so too man is not capable of influencing or changing his fate. It is interesting that the Midrash refers to a statue of the king. The king himself is not near the prison and most likely knows little about what is going on there. Job believes in Hashem, but the incongruity of a just God and human suffering forces him to remove God from the arena of human existence. And that's something we must never do. God is reduced to a statue that represents a great power, but has little to do with reality. And this is what I said the atheists, the natural-minded atheist does, is they reduce, and they say God's a figment, and they've gone through everything that's mentioned here. So a summary: many thinking people have come to a similar conclusion about God after experiencing or witnessing personal pain or tragedy, except with the educated atheist. It's not so much personal pain that brings them to this. It's their own education. They get puffed up with it, and they think that they know better and know different. They have no love for Torah, and therefore they have no light in this world. They simply cannot live with the notion that God is out there and remains passive in the face of horrific human suffering. The paradox of this theology is that rejection of the God of justice eventually promotes injustice and suffering by eliminating any source of absolute and immutable morality. Well said. And this is copyright text by Rabbi. Repeating. Just want to give credit where credit is due. So at that note, what's he got here? The bitterness of Job's plight created a bitter individual. When objective reasons for grief and anguish exist, we certainly can empathize with the victim, even if he or she becomes a bitter person. As long as we can see the objective reason, right? That does not mean that bitterness is the only viable choice available to victims of serious misfortune. Humanity has known scores of heroes, and we've read this before, of the human spirit, who raise themselves to the highest levels of nobility of character as a direct result of their own personal tragedies. It is a matter of choice, an exercise of our own free will. Are you going to, hold your head high and act noble? I think, this is what makes a woman more beautiful than looks is the sheer fact that she holds her head up and faces the world and has hope for better things. And everywhere she goes, people recognize that there's a person of integrity expecting better things, and there's nothing wrong with that degree of understanding improvement. But when one gets delusional of mind, the notion of improvement can seem like a haunting. I'm never good enough, and you don't want to get lost in that delusional mindset that you are not. Hashem loves you just the way you are. He created you just the way you are, and He does know all your days before one of them yet began. But that doesn't make Him the wicked, inflicting taskmaster. If one's got a distorted view of life or their situation, I mean, we all want more, and I think that especially here in Western North America, I mean, most people don't realize we have become victims of what is known as rational choice theory economics. They try to actually determine what is considered rational choice, and pound it at us through media. And there's something wrong with you if you don't want more. They don't consider you rational unless you want more. You actually have been trained. Our whole society has been trained. If you just rational choice theory is something taught in universities as far as economics. You go to the highest universities in the world and look up economics, and they teach rational choice theory economics. And so unless you can get a hook of more into people's mouths, you can't lead them along. And that's what rational choice theory economics, the way it works. When you understand they're determining what they call is rational and trying to, pull people along to spend more. It changes the human mind when you don't have the Torah value of what true ethics are. It can change the human mind from being a citizen with rights and responsibilities to being, just a consumer wondering, well, what's in it for me, and how much are we going to spend? Is all your days are function doing? But rational choice theory is just one of those strong delusional positions that guide people's everyday function, whole societies. And this is something that was, developed in think tanks in the 50s and purported ever since. And some people wonder, why has morality decayed since the 50s and down? Well, it's been the pushing of rational choice theory economics, and they're trying to determine what is rational, and you are considered irrational unless you want more. So if somebody placed two piles in front of you, if you didn't take the bigger apple or the bigger pile, you're irrational. And human beings are not rational completely. We are free moral agents, and acts of kindness that support the world defy their definition of rational choice, of what they call rational. The reality is that if you would show kindness to another, you're considered irrational under rational choice theory thought. And the world needs more deeds of kindness, more acts of kindness. It's one of the pillars of the world, and that's out of Pirkei Avos. So a summary: although we cannot pass moral judgment upon the victims of tragedy and misfortune, we can unequivocally state that their outlook on God and life in general is negatively influenced if they allow themselves to become embittered. Often we are not aware of the fact that philosophical and theological perspectives are to a great extent the reactionary response of victims of tragedy. Many people turn to Hashem only when they go through a tragedy of sorts. It's reactionary, and our relationship with Hashem shouldn't be reactionary. It should be, an act of our will. I mean, study the Torah so you know how to function. The Sheva Mitzvot is what I love most about it, is you can grasp what it is and you can do it. You're not out there worshiping idols because Hashem says so. And in and where it says, you should not. And it's been passed down from Moses to the rest of the world. And I'm so just overjoyed that the rabbis are willing to share the depth of Torah Judaism with us. That may be fine for the victims, but we should keep in mind that their comfort with these viewpoints is subjective to their situation and is most likely the best approach for others. It is also quite important to recognize that many theological qualms are the products of the residual emotional scar tissue that lingers long after suffering personal tragedy. Job's philosophical crisis needs to be understood in this light, so never lose perspective that his sin was that he allowed the seeds of bitterness to enter his heart at this juncture. So a lot of these verses of chapter 3 are really expression of bitterness. I mean, that delusion that seeps in after one has endured a great loss or hardship. You can't let it enter your heart, and when you think you're better off dead, you've obviously crossed a line. But when I discovered the geologic origin of the South Atlantic anomaly, and which ultimately rewrites plate tectonic theory, whether educators want to accept it or not, I faced a lot of ridicule from people that wouldn't look objectively. Their subjectivity was based on their predetermined position, and rather than the evidence. And when you put the evidence right in front of them, people get cognitive dissonance. If you're not familiar with the phrase, cognitive dissonance is a mental state where the mind cannot reconcile opposing evidence. It can't weigh it out. And so if you get an opposing evidence, like in Job's case, he can't reconcile a good God with the degree of suffering. And there's a numbness that comes over, and bitterness works like numbness. It's like if you've ever been to the dentist and had your mouth frozen, it's like Novocaine gets into your nerve, and it deadens it. And bitterness will deaden your life in that regard. And the invariable result of being that way is you're going to make a theological error in your function, or like the atheist, they just hold that there's nothing but the eternal dirt nap. And when they get it, it's a self-fulfilled prophecy. That doesn't mean Hashem doesn't exist. This is why I love Torah. It's just so beautiful. So, yeah, I'll tell you what. So I'm a few minutes late. So I'm gonna try and open up the Zoom screen, and let's start this meeting and see if anybody's lunch meeting. Hope you guys are enjoying this class. Join with my audio, and let me just give my scene and my tools, my virtual camera, so you guys can see what we're all watching. So the Zoom room is now open. The Zoom room is now open. If anybody wants to come in, I've posted the link for the Zoom room, or on Facebook, on the poster that's been put out for the class on Facebook, and it's also in the description here on YouTube as well. And no trolls, like I've shown before. I do have some Zoom rules, and I don't want any nameless trolls, anonymous trolls. Anonymous trolls are, I'm hitting admit all. Angela and Mike, the McConaughey's from the UK. Always good to be with you folks. I know you missed, Rabbi Goldberg didn't have a class yesterday. I see we have Sheila Etzel. This is my mother, actually, folks, if you're not familiar. Mom, how are you?
Okay, thanks.
You guys got home after your trip all right?
Yep.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Hopefully we can catch up soon.
Yes.
Well, bless you.
Didn't have a class yesterday.
No, we make the best of it.
Sheila Etzelis is
Yeah, no Rabbi Goldberg class. But like I said, I don't know. Let me just show you this. Where did it go here? Can you guys see that? International Noahide Network. We Rabbi Goldberg and myself are starting since we've been getting some support. Rabbi Goldberg and I are starting a Roku TV station, and I have another meeting later on today, and I'll be starting to upload videos. So we will have a network up there. Now, Roku, if you're not familiar, Roku is a cable box, but they're also a software developer for a bundle of brands of smart TVs. Just like in the 90s, when you bought a computer, it was always preloaded with Windows as an operating system. Roku approached a lot of television makers and gave their software to make smart televisions function. So a lot of smart TVs come with Roku, actually built right in to the TV. But in the U.S. Specifically, mega millions of people have been dropping their cable providers for these internet TV boxes, and Roku is the leader. They've got more than 50 million Roku subscribers in the U.S. alone. 50 million. That's huge. And so, yeah, we're going to be live on there in about a few weeks. And so I'm going to be uploading some series to set it up like a channel and make sure that the full channel runs well. And it'll be called the International Noahide Network. So I'm excited. And we're hoping that you folks see that those that have given us some support realize that, hey, we are working always towards furthering Noahide broadcasting. And the support we've gotten from some of you has been great. And yeah, so it's exciting. And once it's all set up with with everything, we're only then one button away from, say, Apple TV as well, and it's just another monthly fee to once the server's all set up, a little software upgrade, and you could be on Apple TV. Over in Europe, though, Amazon Fire Stick is doing much better, doing a little bit better, growing a little faster than Roku in Europe. But Roku is built, like I said, right into many smart televisions from the get-go. It's smart TV operating software is there. So you may have it in certain brands of televisions. If you have a smart TV, it may be built right in, allowing you to access it as it's an internet-based TV channel, if you will. And so that's exciting news. So I've got some rabbis in Israel. They're all starting to woo. They're all getting excited. So I'm hoping to really get some more profound content to deliver to the Noahides that wish. And my hope is that people plug in more. And communities, people in areas begin to click and connect. But like I said, they've got over 50 million U.S. subscribers currently, and they're gaining monthly. Like I say, the television networks have been losing, the providers have been losing their cable subscriptions in the millions. And it's just the right time. But I'll be doing a lot of work behind the scenes to keep that all uploaded. Plus, if the Noahide World Center wants to do a special promo or anything, we've got the airtime 24/7 airtime to play with. And so, I've asked a few rabbis to see, because popular now in the U.S. is cooking shows, and so I've asked a few rabbis in Israel and Jerusalem. I says, if you know somebody who's willing to do a cooking show, a kosher cooking show, I said, I'd love to, give them some airtime if we can develop a cooking show. I'll be looking for content, and I'll probably be spending a lot of time doing a lot of animation, but I am going to be spending most of the next week or so converting former classes that we've done. I've got hundreds of them over the last few years, and I got to convert them to a format that uploads with the interface that they use, so that it streams seamlessly to all these Roku stations. So Roku is available in South America. But like I say, it's got over 50 million in the United States alone, and we're hoping to grow. And this is just one little way, and a lot of this becomes possible because some of you guys have been supporting. It's just beautiful to see. Has anybody else got any questions or comments? I see Joshua Murdoch has joined us. Are you still in Calgary, Joshua? He gave us a congrats on the Roku. Yeah, it's exciting. Everything's work though, right? But we labor so we can rest someday, and try, like Job. As we're reading, he can't find any rest, and over a period of time, delusion starts to set in, and burnout. It's called burnout. I mean, if you've ever experienced burnout, too much, too hard, too long work, and burnout. I mean, nobody's above burnout, and if you burn the candle at both ends, and you do it repetitively, it's definitive. You're gonna invariably get burnout. It's gonna happen. There's no way around it. You can't. Nobody can burn the candle at both ends indefinitely. And wisdom says, use your resources wisely. And just like a smart person watches the gas meter on their car when they're driving, you don't run your car dry. You don't want to burn your life out in that regard. And I got a lot on my plate, and I'm hoping that we'll still get to keep going forward till Rosh Hashanah to finish off this book. I mean, we've made more progress than I thought we would, faster than I thought we would. I was aiming to do one of these lessons a day, and we've been able to get a couple, average almost two. It's only day 9, and we just finished lesson 17. Or as it says 16, but there was 14 had an A and a B, and so did 15. So we're around almost 2 a day when we're doing them. They're a little shorter than I remember, but then again too, when you first take a new course, if you literally soak your mind into it, you can get when it's newer material, it tends to take a little longer to digest and chew. We've gone through it. There's a familiarity, and I don't ever want to take it for granted, because I know that Rabbi Schwartz has got nuggets of gold in his explanation here, and I haven't sent him a reply on our last emails, and I still hope to get him on the Zoom room with us one day before this class ends. And just so you know, there are rabbis that have been watching us doing this class, and they tend to lean their ear and look and see. And Rabbi Poston would still doing the 48 Ways to Wisdom is always coming up with beautiful material, and I know that he's appreciated this class to see that people do regularly come and are interested in knowing. I just hope that some of you guys are inspired to grow yourselves and flourish into your own calling. And I would love to, even see some Noahides, even consider doing shows themselves, or come up with angles or avenues that I can click with to produce some shows or something of that nature. I can only carry so much myself for so long and so far. I'm not a rented mule, but it's a joy to get to know more of you and to see your lives begin to grow and develop. But any comments on today's lesson? Because I think today was kind of dark. It was real dark explanations, around the bitterness of that if somebody gets to the point where their mind snaps and they prefer death over life, they think, and I'm going to, like I want to do, I mentioned before, the 8 chapters of the Rambam. He in there describes a sick soul, and it's in light. It's in that same theme. And the Rambam really describes a sick soul as one who's sweet tastes bitter and bitter tastes sweet. They get it backwards, and there's signs, clear signs. The Rambam, who was a physician, in that book, the 8 chapters, maybe we'll do a course on that in the future. But he describes, it's always nice to know the telltale signs of when there's real bitterness in a soul versus an objective state of loss. You got to have a heart of compassion. And you don't want to ever make a comment to somebody who's only in the throes of loss and assume that they've crossed over into a bitterness of soul, when in reality they're still hurting. Right? It's like a fresh wound they just cut. It needs a Band-Aid at that point, right? You got to stop the bleeding before you can start the real healing. And the logic of the Rambam is just phenomenal as far as, and that's all in the book called the 8 chapters of the Rambam. It's a beautiful work. The commentary on this book that I've got is by Rabbi Yaakov Feldman, and I did some Rabbi Feldman courses off of Torah.org as well, and it's always exciting. It's always exciting to when you find a rabbi who's got material you enjoy, to probe the depths of what else they've worked on, and you'll find that the harmony you can find a rabbi that you can cleave onto easily when you start to dive into who they are, what they stand for, what they're about. And the reason I clicked with Rabbi Goldberg myself, the Noahide World Center, is the sheer fact he's just an honest and kind man, and he answered questions directly, and they were always real. They were never nothing ever seemed forced, and he was always patient, and he's always told me if anybody ever asks me a question and I don't know, be honest and say, I don't know, but I think I got an idea where to look. But you get hit with some questions when you get your neck out in broadcasting. There's a lot of trolls out there. I see and nothing frustrates some of these rabbis that are great men of integrity and character than the disrespectfulness of a troll who bashes their character and throws comments out there that just stab at the integrity they've tried to stand up on for their lives for decades, and to slight that. You just can't treat a rabbi that way. And some people don't realize that their behavior pattern's so damaged that that's just how they function. They're derogatory people. And I've learned to note very quickly derogatory speech and try to avoid it because I I'm like a magnet. It's an instant confrontation for me. If to me, it's like a bully picking a fight. When a bully picks a fight, they won't take no for an answer. They get right up in your face and they just won't take no. And when somebody's acting derogatory towards you, they're very unrelenting the same way. They're out to cause harm, and and when they do perform deliberate acts of the will rather than suggested behavior, Hashem steps in when, as we read briefly about Rosh Hashanah, the acts of the will, are tried on Rosh Hashanah. The acts of your free will are what is weighed, and the parameters for your free will for the next year start to, get determined, and you won't pass whatever Hashem determines, and the Malachim will make certain this doesn't happen or that doesn't happen, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. But when somebody deliberately is being malevolent, you need to make sure that they own it as an act of their free will, rather than them thinking. There's nothing more delusional. See, people that are bullies out there, they don't realize that they're an aggressor, and they think they're just doing normal interaction. They need to know when aggression is aggression. I've seen 4'10", ladies that are more aggressive than football player size. I've just saw it, and they don't realize when they're acting aggressive. And most people, because it doesn't fit the profile, as far as physique or something, I've seen people that get off on the power that they influence over others, especially when it comes to fear. And I've seen people that are, like I say, 4'10", and they get off on the fear that people have. I've seen it in church organizations where people are malevolently manipulating circumstances and using every ounce of their influence to sway things against you, and people are afraid of their derogatory behavior, and they need to know that it's an act of their will when you're ever into any situation with somebody, because when it's truly an act of their will, Hashem deals with it accordingly. If it's just a happenstance, like if you bump into somebody in an elevator with your shoulder, because it was too many people going in the door at the one time, that's accidental and incidental, rather than deliberate. But there's making sure people know that their actions are a deliberate act of their will, and they understand that it's their desire to be malevolent. Most people view themselves as honest and good, and they don't want to see themselves in a dark light. I've known many people that are adverse and antisocial, and the reality is that you couldn't convince them that their behavior is antisocial. And I've seen people that are terrorizing, to friends or family, and they will never see themselves in that light. They just can't. It's so contrary to who they believe they are. And that's part of delusion, and they need to understand where their free will, has kicked in, and their free will has made them a problem for others. And if they won't own that, the reality is Hashem deals with differently, and Hashem's truly just, and His ways I know are higher than our ways. But when you perform a deliberate act of the will, and they know where they've gone wrong and they've offended, it's always best to make sure that people, know. And a part of the healing process, if you understand your 12-step program somewhat, when you take ownership of the things that you've done and you try to make amends, it has legitimate effect. But when you don't, there's a delusional side that perpetuates. And all I'm saying is, in the order of things, when parameters get set in Rosh Hashanah, if a wicked person knows they're being wicked, there's accountability before Hashem. And if they don't know they're being wicked, there may not be the same degree of repercussion. And so it's always best to stand up against injustice. Like if somebody's causing you harm, don't be afraid to say, hey, I don't appreciate that. I don't want that in my life. I don't like that. Enough, back off. People need to know, put your hand out, shh, back off. I won't tolerate that anymore. If you're not standing up to that, they think, their minds in their delusional state think you're enabling. And this is what allows monsters to be created in a lot of respects. I hate to say it, but there are certain behavioral practices that reinforce monsters, turn people into monsters, and they don't realize that the subtle behaviors of others, do permit it. We see in Job's mind the delusion, to the point where, he thinks, death would be a reward, a benefit. But we all should be able to understand that in light of exhaustion. If you're tired, you want to lay down, right? You need to have rest. The body, I don't know. I remember when I was a young man, I would work, like I say, 37, 40 hours sometimes in it straight, and then crash for 10 or 12 hours and get up and do it all over again. And I did that for a long period. And, after 36, 40 hours of being up, you start to get dizzy of head, and boom, when you hit the pillow, you could be out instantly. It's tough when you're a driven person, but you can't stay in that state of mind too long. You start to get, they consider sleep deprivation in driving here. Studies show it's in line with intoxication. And so they encourage truck drivers, not to do these double and triple shifts where they're driving 1,600 kilometers or something, or, thousands of miles without proper rest. If the body doesn't get rejuvenated, the mind can snap and it starts to function like it's intoxicated. The oxygen is not clear. The thought patterns aren't clear. Even the eyesight starts to get affected. Nonetheless, Job's position starts to view death as an answer incorrectly. And, logically, we can see how, okay, anything that causes a cessation, you reach a point where you want things, over with. You can't have things going on and on forever. Nobody can stay in a state of pain indefinitely. And, torture techniques, torture is one of those things that is mastered by the malevolent for sure, designed to torment and wreak havoc mentally and cause the breakdown of the mind. Job's lost everything, and now the source. But as we continue to read, you'll see the lesson still has much, much, much to teach us out of the book of Job. But we need to understand that an absolute answer sometimes isn't always available to us. We don't live in that realm of the absolute ourselves. I mean, certain aspects of the absolute, Hashem knows all, so those things are available to him, whereas to us, we are finite creatures with finite understanding, and That means absolute answers may not always be there, and circumstance can get so dire that we want an absolute solution, right? We want a remedy. As long as we stay focused, that we're the whole purpose of the Sheva Mitzvot is to walk with Hashem properly and avoid sinful behavior. The walk with Hashem starts to remedy because He takes pleasure in interaction with when it's proper and not made up. It's not strange worship. And that's really what Avodah Zara, or what we say no idol worship, is somewhat strange, and it's something He's not asked for or requested. And we understand that the walk with Hashem is more precise walk. It's one foot in front of the other for a reason. Certain things can be a curse, nonetheless. Anybody got a comment or question?
Quick comment so far, just to let you know that Raku is also available here in Europe.
Yes, I know it is. But Amazon's gaining ground faster. I saw the stats, Mike. There are the market in Europe is booming right now. Mega millions have been getting hooked up on that Amazon Fire Stick. Now, I could have spent a couple $1,000s more and jumped into getting an Amazon station and linking them both at the same time. But talking with Rabbi Goldberg, you don't want to climb too high too fast, right? The idea is to just, get some presence and see if we can get good quality content out there. And I know that people in Europe have availability. Roku's available all around the world. You can even get it in Africa and in Australia for sure. But we're hoping to develop more classes, and it's an exciting venture. I mean, this is what I've been working towards, and I'm just overjoyed to be connected with the Noahide World Center and Rabbi Goldberg, and this is just another step forward. And our Sunday classes, that when we do those, will end up on there. So all you who like to have your face in the Zoom room, we're going to be televising stuff. So the more mistakes or trolls or problems that happen, the more editing I got to do. So I'm hoping that, clean quality content starts to flow. It's not as difficult as we make it. And I did a series with Rabbi Stephen Bars one time out of Washington. Rabbi Bars wrote a book called, what was his book's name? I think it was called Big. Anyways, it's just a profound author that talks about making the extraordinary easy. And when people begin to step out on things they thought they couldn't do, when they start to take steps forward to do the things they always imagined were out of their capability, they start to make them easy to do. It's not, they start to flourish like a flower. I mean, that flower, when it's reaching up out of the ground and growing, it actually has to reach a point where it's got to bud or die. Same with anything that's hatched in an egg. Most people don't realize, in an egg, there's a small air pocket, right? That when the developing bird in there, once it breaks that pocket, that air pocket, that is all the air. It has to survive. It has to break out of that shell or it dies, right? It can die right in the eggshell. And so that air pocket's there just for that secondary. And life functions this way. Hashem, births things this way. And if you're ever struggling with ideas and notions of grandeur that you think are so far beyond you, don't kid yourself. Hashem may be beckoning you to a greatness in your potential to be fulfilled in accordance with his desire. And you can do it. I just want to encourage you. You can do it. But you've got to be bold enough to take that first step, and then you make what you thought was impossible easy. And you start to realize, oh, I can do this. And it starts to become like a recipe when you start to get organizational in your minds, it's not as difficult as we make things. A lot of times we make things more difficult than it needs to be. And as we're reading in Job, sometimes when bitterness and delusion step in of mind, you think life's the problem. Oh, that's so wrong. It's life, right? I mean, it's a great gift to be alive. The human, if you've ever seen somebody drowning in a pool or in water, I mean, they fight to stay alive. Nobody wants to go experience death. And life is a great gift, and we need to flourish and bust out of our shells in the sense that there's things that we have the capability for, but are unwilling to try because we have mental blockage. I just want to challenge you to remove the filters that are preventing you from taking steps to your full potential, and you can do it. And so thanks for the good word there, Mike, that Roku's over there. Yeah, I know it is. And we're going to be, paying attention. If I can get, several hundred hours of broadcasting out there onto Roku, we're going to be monitoring all stats that'll be coming in and paying attention to see what is successful and what's not. But I'm told, like right now, especially in the West, like I say, cooking shows are hot. Exercise classes are hot, believe it or not. But I don't think I'm going to find some Noahide yoga person or something that wants to do an exercise show. I got no interest in pursuing that sort of venture. But, I'm not sure what direction Hashem's going to take this, but we're hoping that it will begin to also even that if we get if we get to the point where we're at ad insert pool resources start to come in. If that happens, we're hoping that, all funds, that come in will be used for growing Noahide ventures. Like I know that Rabbi Goldberg and Rabbi Uri Shirky are going to be at the Tennessee retreat next month, right? And they're flying from Israel to Tennessee, and they're going to be there with Rabbi Tovia Singer, who is a guest speaker at the banquet there. And the Noahide World Center actually flipped up the funds to sponsor so they could secure the facility up front. And so they're going to be there as honored guests, not speakers, but as honored guests. And Rabbi Goldberg's actually, bringing Rabbi Shirky, and he hasn't made a trip to the U.S. in forever. He's, not originally from there. I tried to get some lines for them so they might be able to do some speaking towards New York. If anybody out there in New York knows a synagogue that might want to connect with Rabbi Uri Shirky, founder of the Noahide World Center, he's still going to be pumping Brit Olam. It's now out in 9 languages, even Chinese. It's just beautiful to see. He's a smile. But we want to be able to grow Noahide, and we think this Roku station is just a natural progression of what we've been working on. And it's going to be a lot of work, but hopefully some of you still continue to support me a bit here and there. But I'll be plugging away trying to find good quality content, to get better quality content, more series from rabbis. I got to start negotiating, percentages with them and things of this nature. It starts to get a little heated. You don't ever want to insult some of these wonderful God-fearing Torah scholars. And it's an honor to get to even have conversation with some of them, but we're hoping to get greater quality. We hope that the airtime does some attraction. I'll be doing some posters and I don't know. I even spent the money for to get their animator to do a splash screen. I'm not too thrilled with this. Is just something I worked on yesterday. It doesn't look too bad, but tell me what you guys think. Imagine if that was on your TV screen. Is that going to be tacky or ugly. I have a terrible tendency in my animations to do too much, overkill, and finding that right balance. I mean, our friend Zakia down in Peru, there, she's an artist, right? She's a student. She was an art student, and she's got an eye for it. I've seen some of her drawings. She actually knows the balance. And myself, I've always been just too much, and how does that look for a splash screen? I mean, I tried to use the Noahide World Center, the star colors as outlines around the lettering, but also try to come up with just something catchy. INN. I got to watch. There's also an INN TV that is a Hindu station in India, and you got to make sure you're not crossing any lines with marketing problems, and just the amount of research people don't realize is done behind the scenes just to produce good quality stuff. It's never easy, but I know that the end result is worth it. Things that seem like I mentioned, tasks that seem impossible or difficult, you can make easy, folks, and it's like, my mother can attest. I mean, I did a film back in 2006 when I was starting to play with animation, just learning what it was all about. And I remember a 90-minute film. Most people don't realize 90-minute film with an animated character, a cartoon, the number of mouth sequences. I mean, now they've got software that automatically read the vocals and, inject the right mouth sequence once you load it. But back then, I had to sift through 90 minutes, and at 30 frames a second with the audio, there was for a 90-minute movie, there was over 1.8 million mouth sequence potential, and I had to sift through all that 1.8 million and leave behind only the ones that were necessary at the right time. And then your review. It sounds like so much, but the human capacity, once it starts going through that, if I did not go through tests like that, I wouldn't have learned to keyframe properly and how to smooth them out and try to make them work. But I still don't have the perfect eye for art. I've always been more a B art student rather than an A art student. I hope you like this scene, this Book of Job, Lake Louise setting. I try to make it pleasing to the eye and hopefully make it look good. But yeah, I'll be working on plenty of things going forward, Hashem willing. So it's an exciting venture, but the whole idea is to get good quality Torah content out there, and hopefully that begins to affect communities. So it's nice to know that there's things out there that you can say to friends, well, here's a show that, these are classes series I sat in with so-and-so, and if they're available video on demand. It's tough to get these rabbis excited about much. Trust me, they're really anti-sales techniques, right? They're really, you try to get them all pumped, and they're used to getting you all emotional, and they don't get emotional easy. So I try, to encourage more Torah. It's not easy. They're gonna move at their own free will pace, and I pray Hashem open opportunities for growth for Noahides in this regard. But it wouldn't have been possible if some of you guys didn't support, and I want to thank each and every one of you that have. The Murdochs have been a blessing. I know that Angela and Mike McConaughey have given, my friend Johnny Riggs out there in North Carolina. He's been a blessing, giving me a couple of decent donations, and it's stuff like that says, puts wind in the sails. It doesn't just encourage; it says make the next step forward. And who knows? It turns into a Roku station, and let's just believe that Hashem's going to use it. And if you have access to Roku, it's something to keep an eye out in the next few weeks. Hopefully, we will be live on there in about 3 weeks' time. I haven't decided when I'm going to start playing back yet, but it's going to start getting excited. I'm hoping to get better content, and I need to balance between getting any content up and then quality. If anybody's got any ideas or suggestions, genuine, helpful suggestions, I want to hear them. So if you're friends with me on Facebook, don't be afraid to message me with ideas and notions, and let's all work together. And you may have a great idea that I might be able to put into fruition or put into practice. And I don't want anybody to feel slighted in any way, but it might be also an opportunity for you to get involved more. I'm always looking for things that might work, and I'm not an island, that's for sure. I'm only human, as many people have told me. I haven't turned down the music on this broadcast often. It's just one of those things that's a small. To me, it's a small dot in everything I got going here. I got about 25 tabs all up on the go to stream on a few channels all at the same time. But I'm looking forward to developing this Roku station, and hopefully some people benefit as the light of Torah continues to shine, and as Hashem would have it. I hope that we can all give him greater glory as we continue to grow in understanding of Torah and Tanakh, and put it into practice, and make the world a better place. So as Hashem wills. So you know what? We're a few minutes early. It's 20 after 10 my time, and I'm going to shut this down for today. So hopefully you'll join me tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow with 15C. Tomorrow is chapter 3, verses 17 and 19. Looks like a bit of review and some more notions. So, folks, hopefully you're enjoying this class. If you guys got any ideas or comments, please let me know what I can do to make things better or continue to grow things. I'm all about making it work. And, if you've got questions, I'd be glad to do my best to answer, or find somebody who has an answer. Research it. I'll either answer it, research it, or find somebody who has it. So that's all anybody can really do. So till tomorrow, folks, I'm going to sign out, and you have yourself a wonderful, wonderful day.